All right, it is Friday. We are having our coffee, our tech talk. Remember hashtag EDI2. Got an amazing group of people, and we're basically at a different spot. And it's still the Buddy Brew coffee. We've all got Buddy Brew on our cups, at least I do. But we're at Inkwood Books, which is a really cool local bookshop. It's 216 South Armenia Avenue, an amazing store. I've got my copy of Packer's The Unwinding. George is going to be speaking at the Oxford Exchange tonight from 7 to 9. When you watch this tape, he'll have already talked. But it's a phenomenal bookstore with a really cool setting, and it's a startup. And it's a startup that really took off years ago. We have a new owner that Stephanie, what did we say, was in Bedingfield? Stephanie Bedingfield, who I've known through Buddy Brew. Her brother Ty works at Buddy Brew, so it's all those connections. But this is a cool startup business which took off and has been able to compete with the big boys and competes quite successfully. And so we're really excited about it. But I got a cool group of people around the table. We're going to talk about startups. We're going to talk about, we have a really neat announcement. Is that right, Joy? Two announcements?
2 announcements today.
Oh my gosh, 2 announcements. That's pretty cool. I got a student from the University of South Florida who's here who's wants to go into urban planning and urban design, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, he's going to do a good job, and so we'll let him talk a little bit. We're going to start with Stephanie. Though, Stephanie, in fact, let's just start out of the gate because you were challenging me not to forget about the big EDI2 ribbon cutting. Is it a ribbon cutting?
It's a launch.
It's a launch.
There may be a ribbon, but we'll
I'm
more.
a politician. I got to cut a ribbon.
We'll go get the big scissors from the chamber and we'll cut a ribbon.
So tell us. Yeah.
Sure. So very exciting. So the EDI2 initiative is really out of the gate. We are in the process right now of looking for Hillsborough County residents to sit on our advisory committee. You can go to our website if you're interested in that. The application is up, information about the program. We do now have a redirect, so it is hillsboroughcounty.org/EDI2. You can have access to all of the application documents, all of the policy documents, as well as this new fantastic infographic map that the commissioner showed at the meeting this week. But the exciting announcement is the program is officially launching on Tuesday, this coming Tuesday, June the 25th at Middleton High School. It is the magnet high school here in Tampa. They have a tremendous STEM program. I was up there earlier this week and learned that half of their kids participate in their magnet programs, which for a magnet high school, it's awesome. It's a tremendous number. So it's really exciting. This launch is going to take place the 25th of June at 2 p.m. at Middleton High School. It is open to the public. We're just going to it's not going to be a long program, but hopefully enough just to get the excitement continuing to go. And really the message that we're showing is there are these brilliant kids here in Tampa Bay. You know, I think it's great if they want to go to the University of South Florida, go to the University of Tampa. But gosh, if they have the opportunity to go to some school somewhere else where they can really further their career, go to MIT. I mean, these kids are going to institutions like that. But then what we're trying to do, and I think what this program is going to do, is really, by supporting this ecosystem, build this entrepreneurial tech community and build a location where these kids 4-6 years down the road, when they finish these degrees, come back to Tampa, come back to the quality of life, because you can now come here, get a great tech job, start a company, and be at a wage that is competitive with somewhere in the Northeast. So we're really excited.
Awesome.
She's the most dynamic person, I'm telling you. Stephanie Savetitek. Amazing what you have done in a really short amount of time. I love the fact that the county recognizing that we're not leading this effort, we're feeding this effort, something that Ken and Joy tell me every day. But we are really working with the startup community and reaching out, talking to kids. Mm-hmm. I'm so excited that we're going to be at Middleton. Mm-hmm. Which is a great place to be. Now the map, we have a startup map.
Yes.
You did a great job.
Thank you.
And look, we're not too shy. I mean, if you look at our startup map, it's a fabulous map. You can look at the Seattle's map, which I think kind of has. We looked at their map and said, "Wow, it's a great map." But we've got a cool community too. How can you find that map?
Sure. So again, the website hillsboroughcounty.org/EDI2, where you'll find the links to the policy documents for the program, the applications for funding, as well as for the advisory committee, and then the ecosystem map is also a link on the left-hand side of the page. You'll see when you pull up the map, it is a PDF right now, but all of the items that are on there do link to the URL, so you can go directly to the source and do your own research from there. You will see on the map as well, there is a disclaimer that if you feel that there's something missing, something that shouldn't be there, my email address is on there. It's also on the website. Please reach out to me because we want to make sure that this is something that accurately reflects the community. This was kind of a first stab after a little bit of vetting, but we're very open to suggestions and changes.
Are we thinking about, I know that like Seattle's got a startup page, which I go, because I get a email from them every day, once a day. And there's that map. I see it. That's what kind of spurred me on. We've got to be able to talk about our community. But it's a page that is supported by the Economic Development Department of Seattle. I'm just wondering, what do we think? Where are we going? What should we do? Are we looking at hosting a page? Should we host a page? Should someone else be hosting the page? Any ideas?
Some ideas. I do think that I think that theirs is just a phenomenal example. I mean, they've done a great job. I do know that there are some nonprofits that are very involved in the maintenance of that site, and so I definitely think that it's something to consider, and I think that it's something to continue to investigate on maybe a partnership level between the county, between the areas, and maybe moving forward from there. We're looking.
You're on top of it.
We're looking at everything.
You
We are open to everything. Yes,
you're doing a great
most
job.
everything. Thank you.
Joy,
Good morning.
how are you doing?
I'm awesome. How are you?
You are awesome. Now, you got a cool announcement. First off, I didn't realize, that I am sitting next to a Harvard-educated, Harvard, MIT. I mean, you blow the socks off people when you look at your education level. And this Harvard-educated MIT student is right here in Tampa Bay. You could be anywhere. You are oftentimes.
Now, let's be really clear, though. I didn't graduate, so I am a dropout. So let's be really clear.
But then that is even better. So that's like so. Then you are right along the lines of the Stephen Jobs of the world and all the others who knew they got in and realized you wanted to be an entrepreneur, and you invest in companies.
Sure.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I am a serial and parallel entrepreneur. I'm an angel investor. And I've got a lot of stuff going on today. And it's actually something I want to talk about. Two things. I want to let Tracy give his news, which is awesome. So we're doing something interesting. We're actually launching Startup Grind in Tampa Bay. For people who don't know what that is, Startup Grind is actually a monthly series that's done around the world. They have no presence in the state of Florida. And ironically, Derek Anderson, who's the founder of Startup Grind, reached out to me and asked me if I would open a chapter here in Tampa Bay. We have a mutual friend out in Silicon Valley. Something about Derek is he actually graduated from school at Carrollwood High School. So he's actually a Tampa native and was really disappointed that they didn't have anything going on here and had heard some of the things we were doing.
What is Startup Grind?
So once a month, we'll actually, and so I'm going to be looking for sponsors and a space and video and all the other things. You actually have basically an hour-long session. They are paid events. They're not free because they actually use the money that comes from the events to promote this all over the world. Everything will be videotaped. So a local successful entrepreneur or startup person will come in and be interviewed for basically about 40 minutes. And there'll be about 20 minutes of Q&A. I want to take questions from the community as to what we ask in the interview, right? But you'll have a chance to have a fireside chat style discussion with someone, say, like Kurt Long or Ian Ippolito or Rob Brady or those people, right? And you'll be able to ask real questions about what happens. We do a lot of other things here. We have all kinds of meetups and we have, panels and events and stuff like that. But to get real time with an entrepreneur who will answer your questions and talk about their war stories, good and bad, right? So success and failure. You know, it's funny, Anthony Italiano and I were talking about the guys from Ambrosia, right? The young guys we met at UT, and we're both helping them. That just kind of came out in our discussion. We didn't actually realize that we're both helping these guys. And we're talking about the things they don't know, right? They know a lot of things, and we're talking about the questions they fail to answer. And I think that's the goal, is to give real-world advice back and forth. Now, the cool thing about this is these videos get uploaded, and they're shared around the world with chapters everywhere. Wow. Not just in the U.S., but in Australia, in India, in China. So they actually they're just launching a chapter in China right now. Actually, the paperwork was signed, and I talked to Derek yesterday, and the paperwork is signed for a group in China. So the videos all get uploaded, and they're shared with the community all around the world. So it's a great opportunity for people here to see what's going on in Tampa Bay, right? So we get to benefit from watching all of their videos, and they get uploaded, and so people in the community will have access to all of that data, and it gets published around the world. So we want to shine a light on Tampa, right?
Yeah.
And what we've actually got going here. So I think it will be a little bit of an awakening for people to see that some of the success stories that we really do have here. So I'm super psyched about that, and the goal is to start in August. Is what we'd like to do, is to start with the first session in August.
Where will this be?
I don't know. I'm looking for space. So I want to find a place where it's going to be consistent, so it'll be the same place every month, so people know where it's going to be. So I've got a few venues in mind. We might want to talk about that. Kind of what I'm thinking.
That is cool. Well, that's cool. So Tampa Bay really is kind of getting on the map.
They are.
And they found you.
Yeah, we have a mutual friend, because Eric lives in Silicon Valley now. He's been out there for like 9 years. He went to work for a startup, right? That's why he went out there. Went to work for Electronic Arts, and then he's done 2 since then, and then he started Startup Grind. So they have they had 45, so they have 53 chapters right now, and they will be at 150 by this time next year around the world.
Wow, that's fantastic. Well, the one thing I was watching an interview that was done with Margaret O'Mara, who wrote the book Cities of Knowledge, and it's about the history of It looks at Silicon Valley. She teaches at the University of Washington. Mm-hmm. She's kind of an expert on the Silicon Valley, and she's written a piece. In fact, she wrote a piece. I want to say it's in Foreign Affairs magazine, Foreign Policy, but it was talking about. Don't try this at home. Don't try to become the next Silicon Valley. Be who you are.
Right.
But one of the things she said in this really great interview was that Silicon Valley is definitely a place. I mean, it's a location. It's a great place. Everybody wants to be in California. But
not me.
It's also a network. But it's becoming more of a network. Mm-hmm. So communities are networking in. And we are networking in, Tampa Bay is networking into this.
Sure.
I thought, so we find our strengths. Mm-hmm. We talk about, who we are as a community, and then tie in. And you got a cool person you want to...
I do.
Well, please.
And actually, to that point, I'll say one more thing before I introduce the other person. So I think the other thing that's interesting is the urban density factor, right? And I don't know if have you been following the articles that Richard Florida wrote?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so I posted
yes.
I posted on the 620 plan, right, in his series, and he's talking about the urban density. And so now they've actually gone through and analyzed, right, where the intellectual capital exists, and it's all about urban density. And they've took all these studies from all the universities, from Stanford and universities all around the U.S., showing that the shift in actually venture capital. It was funny because I posted and somebody wrote something back.
We actually made it on the map.
We did make it on the map.
A little tiny dot.
But the interesting thing is, though, if you look back, 10 years ago, right, 80% of all the money went to Silicon Valley, right? Now only 40% of the money goes to Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley's old tech. So, I mean, people need to think about, right, the difference in sort of how things are happening. So it's old tech, right? It's funny. Look at guys like Michael Dell, right? So Michael Dell started his company in college, and now he's become a dinosaur because he didn't change, and they didn't reinvent internally, right? So it's a great opportunity for startups. So I just want to point that out. If you look at where the money's going, it's going to really cool startups that are outside of Silicon Valley now. VCs go where there's innovative technology. They go where they can get a real return on their investment.
But when you look at the VC map, I mean, I've read all of Florida's books, and I was looking at all the old maps, and I saw the piece that came out a couple of days ago.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm.
But what you traditionally see is the big dots. You can find them in Houston and Austin, and then you got to go west, and it's like it seems like it was all in the Silicon Valley area, the big giant dot in Silicon Valley.
It's because it's big tranches of money. So there's a difference. It's not necessarily tons more investments. It's big tranches of money into established companies. So think about venture capital, right? Venture capital is a series A, B, C, D. Some people are on their G round now, which is mind-boggling to me. At some point, you should probably make money. But I mean, traditionally, it's an A, B, or C right before an IPO or an acquisition, right? So you're seeing rounds that are much later. And if I'm a VC and I've already put in 50 million or 100 million, right? At some point, I've got to say, I'm either going to put some more money in hoping I get my exit, or I got to back away and say I took a loss, right? So you have to think about the mindset of venture capitalists when they're making those investments. Because, I mean, I've been through A, B, and C rounds, and trust me, once you got your A, if you can show traction, getting your B and C, it's like a walk in the park.
Really?
Yep. Because they want that 10x exit on the backside. They need that out of that handful of companies. It's crucial. And I'd rather put, if I'm the venture capitalist, I'd rather put another 15 million in hopes that I get 100 million back out. It's a risk worth taking. You have to understand their risk model.
Now, again, and is Tampa Bay getting on the map? I mean, it's a place.
They are, but I mean, what we need to do is to demonstrate that we have some really cool technology here that's worth investing in, which is a great segue to what Tracy is doing.
Tell us.
No, I'm going to let
Tracy.
I'll let Tracy tell you.
Tracy is going to tell us. You brought Tracy here.
I asked Tracy to come
we're
today.
honored to have you here. I've met you before at Health Camp.
Yes.
And tell us about yourself, what you're doing, and
Well, my name's Tracy Ingram from Intention Technology.
Intention Technology.
Intention Technology, intentiontechnology.com. And what we're doing is we're actually announcing our entry into the Qualcomm Tricorder X Prize. And what that means is we're literally talking about Star Trek tech. You know, all of us, you know, for a long time thought that, you know, medical technology should be available that is different than going to the hospital and being diagnosed for 5 days, a week, and maybe being misdiagnosed. They actually say 55% of people are misdiagnosed.
Oh, yes.
And what we're developing is my background. I've actually spent over 10 years looking at medical technology from Europe, Russia, even China, and really looking at stuff that has a much faster diagnosis rate using microdata. So using the physiological data of the body, heart rate, breath, oxygen, those type of things, and the minute measurements, and taking that physiological data and pushing it to the cloud, we can actually do pattern recognition and do diagnosis.
Are you serious?
I am absolutely serious.
That's amazing. So now, where are you from? I mean, tell me about yourself. I mean, you having taken this information, developed this company, you must have a medical background.
No, I do not actually have a medical background. I have a background in IT. And what happened is I actually got hired by a lot of these companies that were doing tech support. And I got phone calls, and these phone calls of people who, you know, had these amazing diagnoses, which I couldn't understand whether it was a placebo effect or what was going on.
Right.
But as I was working, doing tech support, I found that there was something in the diagnosis that was happening. And after hundreds of calls a day for years, I would work with multiple companies, and things were happening that were beyond my understanding as a technician. And I'm going, well, there's no inputs and outputs of the human body.
Right.
You know, all I know is, you know, a doctor can take a shot and take blood work, and they send it to a lab, and then, you know, a couple of days later we get some results, but we don't really know what that is.
Right.
And I started really understanding that there actually is a language to the human body. I was actually invited to TEDx Salon and to speak on the language of the body and really understanding how the body is trying to tell us what's wrong with it,
Right.
but we're not listening.
Exactly.
And so by studying the microdata and now with computer processing, we can actually start listening to what the body's telling us.
I love this stuff because I really believe in listening to your body. I mean, I tell my wife, I don't trust the doctors. I
wouldn't go that far, but
I
think it's more of a synergistic relationship.
I feel like the separation between all the diagnosis and all the work that you're doing, and then what they look at, and then what the outcome. Oftentimes they're missing it, and the body, as you said, is sitting there telling you. It can tell you sometimes with pain or other things. Hey, there's a problem here, and being able to read it. So you're basically taking all this information that the body's producing.
Right. And see, what we really want to do is we don't want to replace doctors. What we're doing is looking to, what we're looking to do is give the doctors the tools they need to do proper diagnosis. Our technology will actually be able to be used for hospitals to prevent misdiagnosis by actually being able to recommend additional tests to help find what the doctors need to study to find a proper diagnosis.
Tell
And
Mark about what you did at at Startup Weekend. So I think he'd be interested in understanding kind of how the technology works.
So
right?
So how the one of the things that we as I came from a TEDx background, we started talking about it, stuff like that. About 2 weeks ago, I went to Startup Weekend Tampa Bay, which was right here locally, and what that was a contest for 54 hours to actually produce a company, and we were one of the contestants in that company to actually produce a company.
Really?
And what we were able to do was actually take a heart rate variability monitor and connect that to an iPhone and be able to measure the distinct differences in heart rate variability and with the heartbeat and be able to do minor diagnosis as a prototype in 54 hours.
Wow. That's kind of scary.
It's but there's a lot of things that are available to us that we just maybe don't look at. And unfortunately, unless there's a very big profit model behind it, like Joy was just saying, venture capitalist investors want, 10 times return, $100 million out of something. There is a lot of embedded funds in
The profit
current
model
system.
of healthcare, and I mean, I've spent a little bit of time just looking at it as a commissioner, working with with a group of doctors and others who've really wanted to make Tampa Bay kind of the center for healthcare innovation. Mm-hmm. And we've been very interested in trying to find a way to disrupt the current healthcare system, which strikes me as we're going to make money by doing lots and lots of tests. Mm-hmm. We're going to do as many tests as we can because we're going to get reimbursed for the number of tests we do, whether or not we use the test. We're also going to do it for defensive purposes because we don't want to get sued. So we'll do, a number of tests to be able to say when the attorneys come down at us, well, we did all these, analysis. And and look, the doctors are great. I mean, I've spent a lot of time with them. I know that they're trying their very level best to read all they've got to try to figure out what's going on because they want to get it right. But the point is that we're never really trying to figure out really necessarily what the problem is, prevent it, or figure out a way to help you with your body be better at doing the small things that you could do, which I think could keep you healthier, and or maybe take a disease, which is a chronic disease, and help you treat it in a way that will actually keep you alive longer. But the profit model has always been just lots and lots of tests. And they're afraid that if they don't do all those tests, the CAT scan, that they can charge $10,000 for at a hospital that takes only a few minutes to do. Do you really need the CAT scan? Well, if you're a hospital and you're trying to make money, you know what? And you can crank out the CAT scans, you might crank them out, whether you need them or not. And someone like you comes in and says, wait a minute, I got a way of doing it for a lot less money. What stops the hospital from saying, wait, we need to make money?
Well, that's actually the reason behind the X Prize, is to really move technology back in the hands of consumers. So the consumers start having a little bit more control over their health. It was someone who told me the story the one day that if you go into a used car lot, the used car salesman knows more about you than your ER doctor. And it's because they can look up your credit report, they can look up other things. But an ER doctor, if you come in there and you're unconscious, they don't know anything about you. Now, with the X Prize and with the tricorder, what you're able to do is actually start looking at that data yourself. Start looking at your heart rate. Start looking at your pulse. Start looking at certain risk factors that you have, and start catching things before it becomes an issue. It's kind of like going to the dentist. A lot of people, they don't want to go to the dentist, and so they wait till the very last minute where it becomes a big problem. Right. Like what you're saying, a lot of medical problems, if they're caught early, if you reduce stress loads, if you reduce risk factors, you could actually stop problems before they happen. And with the changes in the medical government coming, those are things that they're looking for.
Are you talking about tricorder, an actual tricorder?
It would be similar to an iPhone with a Bluetooth device that would either be connected to directly to the heart. We're looking at a forehead mount with possibly an ear clip type thing, and then that way it can get the signals that it needs while it's actually scanning you. So yes, it would be a mobile device. And one of the things that we're actually going after right now is
are we doing everything we can do to make sure that his company sets up right here. Well, Stephanie,
and that's actually something that
I need your card.
That's something that we want to talk about because one of the things that we
here in Tampa Bay,
right? One of the things we went to was actually crowdfunding, and we're getting ready to launch a crowdfunding campaign because one of our competitors asked for $100,000 in the crowdfunding market, and so far in 30 days they got 1.2 million.
Are you serious?
I'm serious because people.
How much do you need?
People really need this. Really need this type of technology so they can personally start taking care of their own health care.
So this is something that an individual themselves could purchase
Correct.
And monitor every day.
Monitor every day and see what they're and take care of the family and friends. One of the things that I noticed in the industry is that, we all look at our own health, but when it comes to our child and when it comes to our loved ones, those are the ones that we really go beyond to try to help. One of the reasons I got in this industry is my mom was misdiagnosed and bedridden for over 2 years. And, so that personally has brought me into a way of trying to understand diagnosis and try to understand why does misdiagnosis happen and how do we help prevent that.
That's fact. Well, my dad, same thing. My dad was misdiagnosed, and then he passed away from a disease which they might not have been able to have treated, but, it was tragic, but at the same time, almost comical to see all that they came up with that wasn't even close to being what, the disease that actually killed them. So I've always been, I go into this going, okay, I know that what we've got, while good, I mean, it's not like George Washington days where we just bled you, the technology, but I think 200 years from now, looking back at us today, or looking back at us in the 19th, even treating cancer, we just flood the body with chemo. I mean, I know, chemo, you talk to the doctors, it works, but there's got to be a better way, a more precise way of taking the drug and targeting the tumor, or now what they're coming up with ways to starve the tumor. All sorts of cool things, but it's just learning more about the body. I love the fact that you're here. We want to see your business successful, and we want to see a lot of other guys like this right here in Tampa Bay. I mean, that's what MetaFuture 2023, now 2024, which is going to be like in June of 2014, will be at the Tampa Convention Center. And it's all about trying to attract companies all over the globe that are coming up with disruptive technologies to change the way healthcare is provided. I mean, it's $1 trillion industry.
It is.
A lot of money, and there's going to continue to be a lot of money.
But it needs to get more efficient. And until disruptive technologies come in that force the industry to become more efficient, there's no need for them to. And so as we start bringing in technologies that are more accurate, technologies that really help, even help the bottom line, where for misdiagnosis, our technology can go in there and help them reduce fines and fees from Medicare and Medicaid. Yeah. We can also help them identify those CAT scans that need to be taken and help insurance reimbursement for that. So that, really now you have something that's in between that's saying, well, why did you do that CAT scan? Now you could say, well, we've actually took a scan from that person, and we know that they needed a CAT scan because there was all the indicators there that they actually may have had a tumor or may have had something else. Yes. And so now we're actually becoming that middle ground that can say, yes, they need a CAT scan, and it was worth doing instead of just doing a CAT scan.
So where's your company now?
We're a startup phase. We're just announcing our entry into the Qualcomm Tricorder X Prize today, in fact. And what we're doing right now is we've working on building a sensor, and we're using some off-the-shelf sensors to kind of combine that with our data algorithms.
Told you think it's cool.
Oh, it's incredibly cool. I didn't understand a quarter of it. I mean, I'm still I'm taking each of the words and trying to work it through slowly.
They actually demonstrated the concept at Startup Weekend with one of the judges. So it's pretty funny. They got Chuck Papagiorgio to come up on stage and actually use Chuck for things. So they put one of the monitors on it and actually showed the feedback on the iPhone.
Oh, I'd love to see that.
So
I think I'd like to see that. I'm not quite sure. I think sometimes you almost don't want to know what's going on. I do. My test is like I went running this morning. I figure if I make it to the run,
you're good.
Honestly, this is the way. This is an old Navy trick. I would feel something. Okay, that can't be good. Let's just go on the flight deck and run. And if you survive the run, you're okay. Stephanie,
Yes.
EDI2. How can EDI2 help this company?
I mean, so as we have said, the purpose of EDI2 is not to fund companies. It's not the role of government. It is to support the ecosystem that is entrepreneurship technology here in Tampa Bay. And I think the fact you said earlier, the fact that you moved recently from Sarasota to the Tampa Bay area to continue on this journey with this company, I think that that's really exciting. And I think that with EDI2, I think that if we can continue doing kind of what we're doing as a supportive role in the entrepreneur community and showing that we're starting to build some density, starting to have some capacity, some really just brilliant minds here, and so continuing to support what's happening, I think that hopefully your company can continue to move down the successful path.
Capital still, I hear capital's not a problem. There's capital. There's money available. But then I talk to folks and go, capital is a big issue. So I know that capital is here on our map. We show where the angel money is, and we show where the VC money is. But I mean, and I've been pushing, staff to say, well, perhaps we should be putting some of our money into a pool that would be a kind of a participatory angel fund of some sort, governed by this independent body. Joy, should we? I mean, I know you're.
I was going to say no.
But that's what I love. Rather than Joy
If there was eye
saying,
country, they would have been red flags
saying,
right off.
give us more money, give us more money. You've actually been very cautious, saying, hold on. Yep. Government should hold back.
I'm a big believer in if you have a good business idea, that private money is available. So if you can create something that people believe in, then there are private funds available.
Because if the government's funding it, but private's not funding it, you think
that's
there's
a problem. There's a big problem, right? And we've seen that numerous times, right? So when you start using public dollars to fund private organizations, right, then the government is in the business of picking winners. And there's absolutely going to be backlash from the public. And I mean, as a taxpayer, I understand that, right?
But didn't government back in the 1950s and 60s spend enormous sums of money on R&D where they knew, we're not going to get an immediate return.
They still do. The federal government still does.
But
every day.
Should they not? I mean, should there not be that from that research where you're not pressured to have quarterly profits? You're looking for data. You're looking for information over time might actually bring a return. And I'm not saying that's the role of local government because we certainly can't do that.
Right.
So if you look at that today, so I've done 2 turnarounds for companies that sell to the government and who've done all the cyber work and stuff like that and done tons and tons of research. They don't have any better track record than the VCs, just so we're clear.
Okay.
So 80% of those projects fail miserably. The difference is the government sets aside a pool of money. The federal government sets aside a pool of money specifically for that purpose. I believe that when it comes to things like potential healthcare, environmental, defense. Of course, we should do some things in that realm because there are things that you might come up with one revolutionary thing, and the problem has already been identified. So when you look at how that the systems work, right? They identify the problem, and then people who believe they have a solution have the ability to come forward. Very much like what Tracy's doing here. Although Tracy's been doing this work for longer than there was a Tricorder X Prize, just as an FYI.
I can tell. I mean,
so he did it long before that. So I'm still not a big believer in government picking winners. I think that the government supporting the organizations that are going to support Tracy is a great idea. I think that based on what Tracy's going to do, I think crowdfunding is a great way to go because for 2 reasons. To start, now he'll need more money probably eventually as they go forward, and then venture capital will be there. The great thing about crowdfunding is, like he pointed out, one of the competitors and what they raised, it demonstrates that the public actually wants this. Right? So it demonstrates you already have a customer base. If you go ask on crowdfunding for $100,000, that's an inordinate amount of money.
Where would he go find crowdfunding? Okay,
he's actually he's already launched a Kickstarter campaign. He hasn't. He's not sitting around.
I'm sure, no, but I'm asking for the person who's watching. We got a young man here who's a student from South Florida.
There's multiple things. So Kickstarter's a great place. Like if it's a government project, like Citizen Investor is a great place, right?
Which is a local company, Citizen Investor.
It is. Indiegogo, right? Is another one.
The one we're going to use.
Now, where's that?
It's still online. Indiegogo.
Yeah, Indiegogo. And how'd you find them?
I guess I'm maybe a citizen of the web, they call that.
Yes.
I know, and also investing in other projects that are out there that are, that I found that, there was one called the Pebble Watch that came out not too long ago, which is a new digital watch. All those things, and so through social media, through other things, you start seeing all of these trends that are going on and start seeing that, people start, they desire more. But as Joy was saying, it's really about having those initial sales and showing that that's a device that people want. And that's something that crowdfunding gives you that no check can give you, is when you really start having a customer base, you start having a group of people who are really invested in your success, that really want something that hasn't been done before, and they're really willing to go ahead and put money down to go, you might not deliver it for a year, but they're willing to really back you because they think it's something that needs to be done. But
is that something like, the Boulders of the world, the Fort Collins of the world, the Austins of the world, where it seems like there are these companies or these ideas, they seem to take off and there's more of them than we have here.
There's more people than we have here.
So is it more people of that ilk?
So you want to give me I'll give you credit. So I'm going to go back to my urban density.
Okay.
So all of those communities have extreme urban density. So you have a lot of people who have a like-minded attitude about things. You've got a lot of founders, right? So I'm going to call founders something different than entrepreneurs, because founders are a little different than your traditional entrepreneur. They didn't go buy a franchise, right? So you have all those people there together. So it's not hard. I mean, Tracy and I didn't meet each other by, something web-based. We were actually at an event, got an introduction, and we've been friends ever since. So,
Margaret O'Mara was talking about this. She was saying why Silicon Valley is so successful is because they have a culture that it just exudes risk-taking, and they're not afraid of failure.
That's right.
And everybody's of like mind. But it seems as though when you're there and you need capital, the guy sitting next to you says, oh, well, here's 7 different ways you can do it. I got friends that can help you. Like, for instance, Citizen Investor. I happen to know Jordan Rayner, who's the CEO for Citizen Investor. I can say, give Jordan a call. But it seems like there's a lot of that in some areas, and maybe not as much of it here. It's one of the reasons why I wanted the map, to be able to show what we've got locally and how we can create more of it, so you don't have to go perusing the web. You can basically just turn to Joy or someone over coffee, and they can direct you.
You're still going to use the web. I mean, the guys in Silicon Valley still use the web, and the way you get to a VC is through someone who knows a VC.
Yeah.
Just so if you want to go pitch a VC, you can send business plans out all day long. You might, if someone goes, wow, that's the most phenomenal thing I ever heard of, get in the door. But the way to get to a VC is to have someone who knows that VC make that introduction for you. And if you want to look at how all the tech community works, and I don't care where you are in the world, it works based on the network.
And we're building the network here.
Well, and it's who you know, and through things like being co-founder of startup startup Sarasota, but startup weekend Tampa Bay, Barcamp Sarasota, Barcamp Tampa Bay, and then really looking at Health Camp Florida. There are organizations that are really trying to take innovations in technology, innovations in healthcare, and really bring some of those people together. So it is really still about who you know and being able to have those relationships. And it is about not necessarily, going up and talking to someone and shaking their hand and just like giving them your business plan, but really creating relationships. And that's the piece that I think a lot of people forget is really, you have to create a relationships with a VC or an angel investor before you really need that money. And so that they have someone that they have trust, and they have someone that they can invest in you, not necessarily someone that, okay, well, you got a great idea, but I don't know who you are. And being able to establish that credibility and establish that long-term trust goes a long way when you do need the money down the road.
And back to your point of, so what can EDI2 as a government program do to help people like you? And I think you just said it. It's not about throwing business plans in somebody's face. It's about creating relationships. So we are supporting the organizations that are supporting you by hopefully bringing the right people together to have those correct conversations, to start those relationships and to work on that relationship building to get to what you're talking about. So I think that really is kind of where EDI2 plays a role on the specific entrepreneur side. Right.
I was looking at Connect. There's a group called Connect Us, I think, out of San Diego, and it was incredibly successful. The gentleman who started it had what they thought at the time was terminal disease. He survived the disease for a number of years, but he created this organization, and it was all about simply just connecting people, which is what we're trying to do here. I mean, I am still driven by, we're working together to build a community in Tampa Bay, which is recognized as being something that would foster businesses like this. And again, I got a young man here from University of South Florida. I want to introduce him. And I just met you this morning. Yeah. He found out about us. How did you find out about us? Who are you anyway? Why are you at the Wow.
I actually found out through a student at USF. Me and her were having a conversation, and I kind of threw out my enthusiasm for transportation to kind of change here in Tampa. And she goes, well, I think I have someone that you need to meet. So she told me to look you up on Facebook, but I decided to actually go to the source and look you up there, and that's when...
If you want to change transportation in Tampa Bay, we love you.
Well, I come from West Palm Beach, and I grew up and lived through West Palm Beach, and when I first came here a year and a half ago, I noticed, the first thing I noticed, I was like, wow, this city is just a city where if you want to go somewhere, you got to drive. You got to get in your car. There's no other means of transportation. You got a bus system, and no offense, but the rapid system is just kind of like a going around the bush type of thing of what it should be. Whereas, where I come from, it's not big. I mean, obviously, we're not a huge city, but we have a tri-rail system that goes from Palm Beach County to Broward County and all the way down to Miami, and then it transfers to the Miami People Mover.
Yep.
So it's actually a very great system because you're able to park your car at the lot all day and ride the train, and then either you move with the people mover when you get to Miami, or you take the bus system, or it drops you almost dead center, so you're able to walk around.
So Mark, listen to what he said. So he said, I have a parking lot on one end, and he went from city center to city center. Just want to get that in there.
So what I think is, it from my point of view, from what I've seen is, having St. Pete and Clearwater and Tampa have some sort of system where you can park and ride the system all the way across the bay.
Awesome.
We're trying, and we've been trying to build.
What do you think about a boat?
Yeah.
I don't
We already
think
have water.
It's funny because I actually asked this question to a few students at the university, and they actually laughed when we heard about it, due to the fact that if you really think about the boat system, it makes sense when you have a long peninsula like in Seattle,
Yes.
where a lot of it's pushed away from each other, and the only means is to build a boat because it would cost too much to make a highway system across the water. But because we're so close to each other, if you really think about the amount of time to load up the boat, because you got to wait for it to come back and
Sure.
forth, to load the boat up and then have the boat jet across the water and then unload again, you could have probably already made it to the other side, or you would have been right there. So I think it would be a little more than just a boat would have to do it.
If Ed Taranchik were sitting at this table, he's a former county commissioner, he's pushing the rapid ferry, because we've had long conversations about this, and I was real wary. Although we're looking at a system now, the county and the MPO is looking at a system where the distance between South County and MacDill, where many of the people who might use this, is about a 7-8 mile distance by boat. But by automobile, I think you're looking at 30 something.
Close to 30.
Yeah,
30-ish.
30-ish.
Yeah.
30-ish. And so time-wise, it's a significant time, plus fuel.
Right.
They're getting very expensive. Many of these people do take the bus. But we have a very weak transit system. Tampa Bay has been totally reliant on the automobile. The gentleman who I'm going to be having coffee with in a few moments, George Packard, wrote about Florida and our all of the challenges we have in an excellent article called "The Ponzi State." Others have talked. Will Doing of Salon Magazine, talked about Florida and Tampa being the hot mess, and so our focus has been on trying to correct that. And the reality is that in order for us to do it, we're going to have to get public support, and I think it's going to have to be driven by the students. So I'm so excited. I really want to. Anytime anyone from a college comes up and says, I want to get involved, I'm like, hey, we will, I'm telling you, my office, we will find ways to make you an intern. We'll get you involved, and with the chamber, we'll get you involved with the Economic Development Corporation. We'll get you involved today, helping to make these changes, because the challenge is that a lot of the folks that are fighting this, wonderful individuals, but you know what? Many of them are tired. They're not interested in getting from here to there quickly. They don't see the value of connecting. I'm reading about downtown Denver, the airport at Denver, which is 25 miles from their downtown, the new Denver airport, and the distance between the Denver airport and downtown is 25 miles, and they're working on connection points because they recognize the value of connecting their airport and our downtown. Our distance is like 7 miles between our airport and our downtown, and we're debating whether or not we ought to have a fixed rail guideline between the airport and downtown, which is crazy. We absolutely ought to have it, and we're going to have it, but it's going to happen faster when we get students involved, and so I'm really glad to have you here. We're going to get others involved. We could talk forever about transportation. We're not going to, not today. But what we want to do, Tracy, is we want to see you successful. Joy, you've been phenomenal in bringing these businesses and companies here. We do these coffees. We have them at Buddy Brew. When we don't have, like next week, we're going to be at Mosey. We were at USF Connect. We've been at the Entrepreneurship Center with Dr. Rebecca White, who's a phenomenal individual, just transforming not just University of Tampa and all the things that are going on at UT, but just that whole area. I mean, you've got young entrepreneurs budding all over the place, and it's happening right here in one of the coolest places in, I think, America, which is Tampa Bay. This is a neat place to work. We've got people like Stephanie, young, dynamic, smart, driven, who are really focusing on making our entrepreneurial community thrive, and we want you to be right here working, and so we'll be here every Friday talking, having coffee. See you, Buddy Brew. I'm usually there and on any given day, and if you got a cool idea and you want to pitch it, give me a call. Love to meet you. Thank you. Cool.
Thank you.